Welcome back to the Cold War, episode 297, Cuban Revolution. Dr. Che Guevara, they're in love like you and me. They are the Ray and Cam of communist revolutionaries.
It's a bromance. It's a bromance.
Yeah. As I said, they rented a farm in 1956, about 20 miles south of Mexico City, where they could train their guerrillas, but unfortunately, they get arrested and go back to jail.
Right. Do you think it was just the activity? Because I know they're training with the guns. Do you think someone just heard or saw? I mean, if you don't know, it's no big deal, but I was a little...
I do know because I read books. But before we get into that, so some of Castro's supporters, including some veterans of the Moncada attack, had been arriving from Cuba in small groups. And Castro had secured the services of a guy called General Alberto Bayo, B-A-Y-O.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Cuban who was a lot older than them. He had fought against Franco during the Spanish Civil War.
Right.
We're going to be covering Franco and the Spanish Civil War, Spanish fascism on the Bullshit Filter the next time we record the Bullshit Filter.
That's right.
And he was hired by Fidel to train them in guerrilla warfare. You know, Fidel had a crack at being a military leader.
You know, maybe it's not.
At Moncada, and realized he probably hadn't thought it through well enough.
Right.
So they need somebody who's actually got real life experience in a battle zone to train them. So, and he Bayo had done some stuff in Cuba before that as well, during the civil wars there going back a while. So, according to Fidel, Bayo said Che was his best student.
Oh, wow.
And the two of them would play chess every night because all cool people play chess.
That's right.
Even in Mexico, it wasn't easy to organize a guerrilla force of foreigners in secret, and so they get arrested in June when the farm was raided. Now, according to Che, the federales apparently thought they were smugglers.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
They had they'd heard rumors of guns and a farm, and they had been spotted as being secret and sneaking about. And they thought they were smuggling. He said it wasn't drugs, it was just other stuff they thought they were being smuggled. He said drugs wasn't really a problem then, but it was other stuff they thought was being smuggled in. Fidel was just happy when he was arrested to find out it wasn't the secret police who arrested them, because he believes the secret police were bribed by Batista to find the Castro group and have them whacked. So he was happy it was actually the good cops and not the bad cops. According to Fidel, when Che was arrested and interrogated, they asked him, "Are you a communist?" Che replied, "Yes, I'm a communist." And the newspapers over there in Mexico started reporting that we were a communist organization, that we were conspiring to liquidate democracy on the continent, and I don't know what else.
Jesus Christ.
They took Che before the prosecutor. The prosecutor interrogated him, and Che even started arguing about the cult of personality, doing a critique of Stalin. This is Fidel talking here in his memoirs. Imagine Che involved in a theoretical discussion with the police, the district attorney, and the immigration authorities over Stalin's errors. This took place in 1956, and in February of that same year, Khrushchev's critique of Stalin had taken place. Che, of course, stuck to the official versions put out by the Soviet Party Congress. Che said to them, yes, all right, they committed those mistakes and this and that and the other, and defended his theory of communism and his communist ideas. Imagine, he was an Argentine. At the time, that was risky. I sincerely believe that in situations such as that, when the whole project was in danger, the best thing to do would have been to disinform the enemy. But Che, who was so strongly influenced by the epic of communist literature, couldn't be reproached for that tactical mess, which didn't keep him from going to Cuba with us.
Wow.
When Fidel,
just real quick, one of the books said, and I should have said this on the last show, when Castro and Che meet, you know, they hit it off. But one of the things that Castro gave to Che was, look, here's a real cause. Here's a cause that you can immediately start working on. It has a definite endpoint when we're in charge of Cuba. I mean, it gave this very intelligent, very experienced, very curious person who can, he's like, I don't know, he's like MacGyver and a brainiac and a chess player, and he poetry all at the same time, but he's got this cause that he can finally sink his teeth into. I don't think he wanted to lie. You're goddamn right, I'm a communist. You know, I mean, he was just going to put it all out there because he believes in this stuff tooth and nail. And I can just see him talking circles around these poor people that are trying to question him. He just takes his balls out at this point, I think.
Well, I think it was part of Che's personality that he refused to lie.
Right.
And he refused to hide who he was and what he thought. He was this guy that would say what he thought, regardless of the consequences.
I'm a coward.
You know,
I wouldn't.
and I've always admired that about him.
Yeah.
Like, he forced people to deal with reality, to deal with him and his view of the world. And you could disagree, but he would stand there and he would be willing to have a discussion, an argument with you. And he wasn't going to pretend for the sake of social niceties. Or even, you know, if his own life was on the line, he's like, yeah, I'm a communist, and let me tell you why. When in Fidel's memoirs, when he's asked by the guy who co-wrote it with him, you know, his memoirs done late in his life, it was basically a long interview with him over years,
right.
By the guy who was the editor of Le Monde Diplomatique at the time, a French journalist. He asks Fidel if Che was a Trotskyite. Fidel says, no, let me tell you what Che was really like. Right. Che already had, as I've said, a political education. He'd come naturally to read a number of books on the theories of Marx, Engels, and Lenin. He was a Marxist. I never heard him talk about Trotsky. He defended Marx, he defended Lenin, and he attacked Stalin. Or rather, he criticized the cult of personality, Stalin's errors, but I never heard him speak really about Trotsky. He was a Leninist, and to a degree, he even recognized some merits in Stalin, you know, industrialization, some of those things. I, deep inside, was more critical of Stalin than Che was because of some of his mistakes. He was to blame, in my view, for the invasion of the USSR. 1941 by Hitler's powerful war machine, without the Soviet forces ever hearing a call to arms. Stalin also committed serious errors. Everyone knows about his abuse of force, the repression, and his personal characteristics, the cult of personality, but yet he also showed tremendous merit in industrializing the country, in moving the military industry to Siberia. Those were decisive factors in the world's fight against Nazism. So when I analyse it, I weigh his merits and also his great errors, and one of those was when he purged the Red Army due to Nazi misinformation. That weakened the USSR militarily on the very eve of the fascist attack. He disarmed himself, he weakened himself, and he signed that terrible deal, the German-Soviet Pact, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, and other things. So, again, you know, I think in the West, in the United States, we're sort of taught that all communists are the same and they all support the Soviet Union and support Stalin and this and that and the other.
Cookie cutter.
Fidel and Che were never, you know, they did have a relationship with the Soviet Union after they took power in Cuba because they had to have support from someone that was bigger than they were to help them defend themselves against the United States. But they always had a very fractious relationship with the Soviet Union, and Castro very critical of Khrushchev in those years for backing down during the Cuban Missile Crisis and doing a deal with Kennedy without even asking for Fidel's permission, or discussing it with Fidel beforehand, and was critical of Stalin. So, you know, these guys were very critical in many ways of the Soviet Union's version of socialism, particularly under Stalin and beyond.
And they're thinkers.
As were the Chinese communists,
right?
You know, Mao and
under
Dong. Dong, as we've talked about, I'm sure at some point before, when Deng Xiaoping took over after Mao died, he went to the US to forge an alliance with the US against the Soviet Union because he saw the Soviet Union at the time as a bigger threat to China than the United States was. And also he wanted to tap into the United States' money and manufacturing processes and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And the United States were like, sure, we'll teach you how to build stuff that will never come back to bite us on the
I was going to
ass.
say, what are you going to do? Take all our jobs? Come on in.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Become a global economic superpower?
Based off manufacturing? Fuck that. No way.
You're the sick man of Europe, sick man of Asia. That'll never happen.
Yeah.
So that's Fidel talking about Che and about Stalin. So they get arrested in Mexico and they're in jail for a couple of months.
Wow.
And they don't get whacked. And then the former Mexican president, Lázaro Cárdenas, personally intervened for some reason and secured their release.
Wow.
Don't really know the details.
Right.
Fidel doesn't mention it in his memoirs. He does mention Cárdenas's involvement.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, secured their release, but they realized that future military training needed to take place in a more distant part of the country. So, with some financial assistance from the former Cuban president Prió, who's obviously enemy of Batista, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Right.
Fidel had no love for Prió when he was
Good point.
in the Ortodoxo party, but when Prió was president, Fidel was criticizing him, but enemy of my enemy is my friend. So they secured enough money to purchase a small motor yacht called the Granma, Granma, from an American living on the Mexican coast at a place called Tuxpan.
Right.
And they started training at Tuxpan on the Mexican coast. And a few months later, November of 1956, they decide to jump on the yacht and sail back to Cuba.
Can I just ask real quick? The ship, and I hope this is not wrong in my notes, the ship was called Granma, Granma. Is that right? Or is that it?
I just said that.
Okay, no, that's fine.
You're not paying attention.
No,
I just said that like literally.
I don't need the attitude.
60 seconds ago.
Well, okay, you want to know the truth? You faded out because of your shitty Australian internet. There, I said it. The point I want to make was
Get the fuck out of here. My internet.
The point
I have the greatest internet. Everyone says we have the best internet. Some people say it's maybe the greatest internet of all time.
Forever will be. No,
Yeah.
The rough draft of tonight's notes was actually written the last time we did a Cold War show. And so, because I went too far, because you know how hard I work. And I wrote this note, and so I forgot all about it. And I look at this sentence. It says, near the end of November, the fighters all ganged up on Grandma. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Why did I write that? So, and because I didn't write it, it was a ship. Anyway, I saw that when you were saying that. I'm like, oh, okay. So it wasn't like an orgy or anything. It was a ship, and they were on their way back to kick ass and take names. So Grandma's fine, everybody. Don't worry about it. But that sentence threw me while you were talking.
No, it was named, it's believed to have been named by the previous owner for his grandmother. The grandma.
That's sweet.
Means what you think it means. And it was purchased for about $4,000
right,
through a friend of Fidel's. The guy who sold it to him didn't know why they wanted to buy it.
Yeah.
But
can I just say real quick, a couple of minutes, or I think it was at the beginning of this show, you mentioned people who are dedicated, people who are tenacious, or they really either believe in the cause like Che, or they believe in themselves like Castro. And then you mentioned luck. And you and I have done enough shows to know that luck is woven throughout history, good luck and bad luck. And I'm sitting there thinking, so Castro and Che are in jail in Mexico. They've been in jail for a couple of months, like you said. And then the former president of Mexico gets them out. And then the former president of Cuba, Prio, gives them money. I mean, it's not like they sent, as far as we know, they sent them letters going, hey, can you get me out of jail? Hey, can you give me some money? I mean, again, just these things. And again, you have to be in the right place at the right time. You have to be known for being sincere, because people aren't going to just give you money or whatever willy-nilly. So what's that saying? Good luck is the residue of hard work, or in this case, a dedicated cause. So again, I just think the story could have ended with them in the prison, but these two very, former presidents, big people on the stage, come and bless their lives, and it keeps their movement going. And there's just got to be some other surreal moments like that I just think is amazing. But luck definitely does play a part, whatever part he wants to play in history. Is that real? That is a good looking man. That is a hot doc. And I would pay $3 or $3 whatever to get to know him.
I just noticed that. I'd totally not seen that all this time.
Where'd you have it at?
Yeah, I have. It's stuck on the side of my filing cabinet in my office. I just held up to the camera for Ray. It's Cuban paper money, $3 Cuban.
Right.
3 pesos, not dollars, 3 pesos, with a picture of Che Guevara on it.
That is cool.
One of our listeners many years ago, I can't even remember who it was, but one of our listeners went to Cuba and said, what do you want? And I said, yeah, Cuban stuff. So he sent me some Cuban money and coins, and I've got a photograph of Fidel Castro up above my computer here, which you can't see, but yeah. So thank you to whoever that was. I can't even remember who it was. It was like years and years and years ago. But yeah, I've got Cuban paper money with Che Guevara on it here.
That is amazing.
So before we get into them landing at Cuba, well, we're just going to wrap up this episode with some more quotes from their respective memoirs.
Ooh.
Fidel writes this. I think this is maybe from his memoir. There are 2 kinds of war, an irregular war and a regular conventional war. We created a formula for confronting that army of Batistas, which had planes, tanks, cannons, communications, everything. We had neither money nor weapons and had to find a way to overthrow the tyranny and make a revolution in Cuba. By the way, I'm hoping some Americans are listening to this and thinking about staging their own revolution in the United States.
Yes.
This is, well, I know somebody who lives in the middle of nowhere in Virginia where you could probably train a revolutionary army.
Exactly. Nobody would know.
On his slave plantation, and no one would know.
Well, everybody here is retired. They're in their 80s. They can't hear. We can set off, artillery. They would have no idea. It's the perfect place. Yeah.
And if anyone does inquire, you can go, look, I do a World War II podcast. I'm just it's for the podcast.
That's brilliant. Oh my God. You know what? You're my number 2. Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just stay here and be your number 2 from here if that's okay. I'm not going over there.
Perfect.
Fuck that.
Perfect. Anyway,
back to Fidel.
Please.
To overthrow the tyranny and make a revolution in Cuba, and success crowned our venture. I'm not going to tell you that it worked purely on its merits. Luck played an important part. You can make mistakes, commit errors, or do things as perfectly as possible, and there are still things you can't foresee. You can live or die, perish or survive because of one small detail, or because you did or didn't receive certain information on time. Remember the pain and grief with which I talked about the series of chance factors that thwarted our plans to take the Moncada barracks after so much organizational effort. And as we'll see, the landing in Cuba goes even worse than the Moncada barracks attack.
Oh my God.
Everything goes horribly, horribly, horribly wrong.
Hopefully live and learn.
But again, and I said this in our last episode, one of the things that's always impressed me about Fidel is he's willing to acknowledge, it's luck. You can plan and work your ass off and do everything, but, it reminds me of that Al Pacino speech in Any Given Sunday.
Right.
The 1 inch speech.
I love that.
1 inch too fast, 1 inch too slow.
Yep.
And you miss the play.
Yeah.
You know, it's you do everything you can. You train hard, you work hard, you try and execute to the best of your ability, but you can't control all of the circumstances.
Forces
So-
beyond your control. Exactly. Yeah.
Like, I'm not making excuses for myself, but I launched the podcast network 2005, built it into a good business over a couple of years, was making a lot of money,
Yeah.
mostly from advertising.
Yeah.
The global financial crisis hit
Motherfucker.
in
Right.
middle of 2008.
Yeah.
All of the money disappeared literally overnight. Within 30 days, I went from making 50 grand a month
Damn.
to making nothing
Damn.
and having expenses of 10 grand a month.
Right. Right.
And it all disappeared. Now, maybe I could have done something to prepare for that,
Mhm.
but it was a startup. It's not like I'd had the ability to,
Yeah.
save millions of dollars. Or I did have an opportunity to sell the business at some point before that, but I didn't take that up. But, I thought I'd be able to bankroll it myself. I couldn't foresee
Yeah.
that
The
coming. I
entire
mean, there was no way I
Fucking
could.
global. Yeah. Yeah. Who's
Yeah.
going to predict that? Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was particularly bad. So things happen. You can't foresee them. All you can do is try and adapt and pivot and do the best you can do to survive.
Yeah.
But I've always admired this about Fidel is that he's like, yeah, we were lucky.
Yeah.
We worked hard, but honestly, it was just a lot of luck at the end of the day. You mentioned before about planning and persistence and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And as I said in the last episode, like, we look at people like that who did work hard and succeeded, and we go, see, they worked hard, but that's survivor bias.
Yeah.
For
Good point.
every one person that works their ass off and is focused and committed and succeeds, there's 99 or 999 that do exactly the same thing and don't succeed
Right. Right.
through no fault of their own because bad luck. We never hear about their stories. You don't read about them on the front cover of Fortune magazine or
Exactly.
Forbes
Who
magazine
wants to hear
or the
about-
Wall Street
Yeah.
Journal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you do, it's like, oh, that person fucked it up, right?
Right. It's their fault.
They didn't,
Yeah.
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 We lionize the success stories and we bury or demonize the failures. And in some cases, it's bad people who do bad shit. They're corrupt, they're fraudulent, they're psychopaths, whatever.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, there's a million stories of people who worked their ass off and tried their best and just shit turned against them for whatever reason. Anyway, Che's official role in the group was as the group medic, but he also trained in all of the military exercises, and as we'll see, was not he's not the main military commander.
Mhm.
And he and Fidel have some tension in their leadership, which is actually well covered in the Steven Soderbergh films that I mentioned in the last episode.
Cool.
Fidel talks about it a lot, not because he didn't love Che, not because he didn't trust Che, but because Che was too important and Che was too bold, too daring, did not give a fuck what happened to him. And wanted to be, everywhere, doing everything and take
Yes.
all of the risks. And Fidel was like, no,
Dude.
no, I
Dude,
can't.
Yeah. No.
A, you're sick, you've got asthma.
Yeah.
B, you're the group medic. We
Yeah.
can't, if you die,
Fucking yeah.
we're all alone in the Sierra Madre Mountains fighting this guerrilla revolutionary war. If we lose our doctor, we're fucked.
Not good.
We can't
Yeah.
afford. You got to stop taking risks, and Che would get pissy,
Right.
Because he wanted to take the risks for the revolution, and Fidel was always like, "No, dude, like calm the fuck down. No, I'm sending someone else, not you. You're too important to the success.
Right.
And when we succeed, I need you with me
Exactly.
to run things because Fidel knew that Che was probably the smartest guy. Fidel had a pretty healthy respect for his own intelligence,
Sure.
but I think he thought Che was smarter
Yeah.
than he was.
I need you.
And he was going to need
Yeah.
Che
Yeah.
when they took over to help run things, he admired Che, he respected Che, he loved Che, and he didn't want to do it without Che.
Right.
And I think Che grated on at that at some times because he wanted to be the guy. Anyway,
Yeah.
there's this great bit in Fidel's memoir where he says, "Let me tell you one quality that sums Che up, one that I most appreciated among the many I observed in him. Che suffered from asthma. In New Mexico City, there's a volcano, Popocatépetl. Popocatépetl.
Okay.
I looked up the pronunciation of it.
I believe you.
And every weekend, Che would try to climb Popo, as he called it.
Jesus Christ.
He'd get his equipment in order. The mountain is tall, over 5,000 meters, almost 18,000 feet, with snow year-round.
Sure.
He'd start the ascent. He'd make a tremendous effort, but he'd never make it to the top. The asthma prevented him. The next week, he'd try again to climb Popo, but he wouldn't make it. He never made it to the top. He never reached the peak of Popocatépetl. But he kept trying to climb the mountain, and he'd have spent his entire life trying to climb Popocatépetl.
Damn.
He made a heroic effort, although he never managed to reach that summit. So there you see his strength of character that gives you some idea of his spiritual strength, his constancy. When we were still a very small group, whenever a volunteer was needed for some job, the first to volunteer would always be El Che. And another characteristic of his was that foresight, that almost prophetic clairvoyance that he showed when he asked me not to prevent him from going to Argentina to fight for the revolution there. And later, during our own war, I had to make an effort to save him because if I'd let him do everything he wanted to do, he'd never have survived. From the very first, he distinguished himself. Every time we needed a volunteer for a difficult mission or to lay some surprise, recover that needed to be saved so the enemy wouldn't get their hands on them, the first to volunteer would be El Che. He'd be the first to volunteer for any difficult mission. He was characterized by an extraordinary bravery and absolute contempt for danger. But also, he'd sometimes propose that we do very difficult, very risky things. I'd tell him, no. You send a man out for a first ambush, a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and sixth. It's like flipping a coin. In a combat at the platoon or squad level, he dies like people that play Russian roulette.
Mm-hmm.
As a man, he was an extraordinary human being. He was also a person of great culture, a person of great intelligence, and with military qualities as well. Che was a doctor who became a soldier without ceasing for a single minute to be a doctor.
Oh, that's a good. I mean, I can just imagine Castro sends up, I need someone. Che, put your hand down. Who's going to Che, put your hand down? Now, this is a day.
Yeah.
Che, put your hand down.
Yeah.
There's a good chance Che, put your hand down. You know, just fuck you. Someone tie his hands down. But no, what little I know about Che, and that only comes.
Anybody else?
Anybody else in the room?
Bueller?
No, but
Bueller?
like you said, he read, he played chess, he wrote poetry, he read poetry. He had a journal. He talked about Dr. Freud's theories. I mean, this guy was just curious about everything that existed. And of course, he's going to want every adventure. No matter how, and let's be honest, when you're in your 20s, you think you're going to live forever, or you think something can happen to you. But again, I'm sure Castro had a few migraines thanks to Dr. Che.
And Che actually didn't think he was going to live forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like we'll see later on, like when he leaves Cuba
Right.
to go off to Congo and Bolivia and whatever, and he's got a wife and kids and that kind of stuff. He says to them, he sits his young kids down and goes, I'm probably not going to come back from this.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to die. And if I do, you need to look after your mother and you need to grow up and support the revolution and blah, 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 blah. Like he was very aware that he was probably going to take one at some point and die young, die on the battlefield, but didn't care.
Exactly. I was going to say he was going to do it anyway. Yeah.
That's what he had devoted his life to, was ceasing the oppression of imperialism and colonialism around the world.
The cause. And we didn't get to it tonight, and I don't know I don't know the date, so I apologize. But at some point, does Castro's does he either get divorced or does his divorce become final? In the big story of Castro, whatever. But I think the marriage was pretty much over by this point. I just remember reading one line in one book, but I was just wondering if you knew anything more about that.
Yeah, I don't remember the dates,
We'll get to it.
yeah, he's been in prison for a couple of years
Yeah.
now. He's in
That'll do it.
exile. He's left his wife
That'll
and
do it.
kids behind in
Right.
Cuba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like his wife and kids don't play a big part in these years. I mean, I think he's probably sending them some money
Right.
where and when he can.
Okay.
But also remember, his wife comes from
She's
sort of a wealthy family.
money.
So,
Yeah.
and her brother is one of Batista's right-hand men.
She's okay. She'll be okay.
She's doing okay.
Yeah,
she's being looked after.
better than us. Yeah.
Probably, being looked after better by her family now that Fidel's out of the picture.
Good point.
In Che's own diaries, he writes about meeting Fidel Castro, and I thought I'd just finish with this. I met him on one of those cold Mexican nights, and I remember that our first discussion was about international politics. Within a few hours by dawn, I was one of the future expeditionaries. But I would like to clarify how and why it was in Mexico that I met Cuba's current head of state. Then he does some background about his time in Guatemala and the Moncada barracks attack, and then he talks about Fidel in Mexico. Fidel Castro, helped by a small team of intimate collaborators, gave himself over entirely, with all his energies and his extraordinary spirit of work, to the task of organizing the armed fighters that were to leave for Cuba. He almost never gave classes on military tactics, since for him time was in short supply. The rest of us were able to learn quite a bit from General Alberto Bayo. Listening to the first classes, my almost instantaneous impression was that victory was possible. I had thought it quite doubtful when I first enrolled. The rebel commander, to whom I was linked from the beginning by a liking for romantic adventure and the thought that it would be well worth dying on a foreign beach for such a pure ideal.
Oh.
Then he talks about them getting arrested in Mexico and says, "But at no time did we lose our personal confidence in Fidel Castro. Fidel did some things that we might almost say compromised his revolutionary attitude for the sake of friendship. I remember that I explained to him my specific case as a foreigner illegally in Mexico with a whole series of charges against me. I told him that by no means should the revolution be held up on my account and that he should leave me behind, that I understood the situation and would try to go fight wherever I was ordered, and that the only effort on my behalf should be to have me sent to a nearby country and not to Argentina. I also remember Fidel's sharp reply, 'I will not abandon you.' And that's what happened, because precious time and money had to be diverted to get us out of the Mexican jail. That personal attitude of Fidel's toward people whom he holds in esteem is the key to the fanatical loyalty he inspires. An adherence to principles and an adherence to the individual combined to make the rebel army an indivisible fist."
Wow.
He says that when they boarded the Granma for Cuba, Fidel said, "In 1956, we will be free or we will be martyrs."
Ooh, there you go. All or nothing. I like that.
Well, that's where we're going to leave this episode. Next time, what happens when they finally land back on the shores of Cuba?